Welcome to the Dental Marketing Guy Show. I'm Justin, the Dental Marketing Guy, and today we have a very special guest. Most business owners struggle with the challenges of building their business, and a lot of it has to do with managing conflicts and having conversations with your team and your staff. What my guest today, Lorraine Guth, she specializes in implementing customized systems that help teams work better together for organizational success. She doesn't change the way you and your team communicate. Her processes will change the way you think. And I love it when we have guests on who can help our listeners and our viewers think in a different way, because I'll tell you, dentists, they're a smart bunch and they catch on really quickly. I'm really interested to talk to Lorraine because she's a speaker and a consultant. I know I've seen her on Howard Farran's podcast and some different places. And man, let me tell you, I couldn't even do it justice. All the level of experience. I'm just gonna come right in and give you the floor, Lorraine. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
I'm great. Tell us a little bit about your background in dentistry and how you help dentists.
So I started in dentistry, I'm age enhanced, so it's been more than 30 years, we'll just say that. And I started when I was 17 as a dental assistant. And back then I was, I don't know, some of your viewers might remember the days of dip tanks with x-rays and, cleaning the plaster trap and all those fun things. And got hooked on dentistry and I've been with it ever since. So I moved fairly quickly into the administrative side, and I was always very good at the management side by nature and the presenting treatment, getting people to come in over the phone, those kinds of things, and really then worked at building my skills in that over the years, and that's what I teach in many practices now.
Excellent.
So, a long haul.
Yeah, wow. It's always great to have a guest who has a big background in dentistry. I know a lot of our viewers are dentists. There's probably a few dental assistants out there too, but even though the viewers are dentists, I gotta say, I was talking with Coach Heidi Mount the other day, and she was telling me, when you have a dental assistant background, you have a different background. You come at it from a different angle than if you have a dentist background. And that's really important because, I always say on the show, the front desk is a really tough job. Maybe could you go into some of the main points of how you help dentists improve their practice?
One of the ways is in the administrative area right now. I think the way we function has really changed. So I look back, 20 some odd years ago, it was pretty easy to schedule people when they called, to get people to consider you, to come in the door and manage those calls. Right now we're looking at, for example, if you're a fee-for-service practice, you always have people calling to ask if you participate. You have all kinds of different issues that people consider. So we also have to be a lot better at really reactivating patients, doing things to build the business. So I think 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the administrative side was more about handling the administrative task and functioning in a kind of effective way with our patients. Now it's different. I think the administrative area is about building your business. It's the sales and marketing department. So we need to be very good at promoting the business, at filling the schedule, at getting somebody on the phone over a piece of plastic to fall in love with us, even if we don't participate, which is a big deal, and that's a learned skill. We need to be very good at talking about insurance and financial issues. We need to be very good at following up with people that haven't been in. It's interesting. One of the things that I do sometimes, I speak at a small business expo that is full of people that are not dentists. And I find it really interesting. Their focus is so strong in, how do I get more clients? How do I retain more customers? That's everything they do. They think very much about that. And they're no stranger to marketing, right? So, if you look in the US, I remember when I opened my business, I went to the bank and said, and one of the things they told me when I took out a $60,000 loan is that half the businesses in the US go bankrupt in the first 5 years. They go out of business. And they wanted to let me know that if I didn't manage my business well, they'd take my house. It's pretty interesting. So, you know, this is when you come from the small business side out of dentistry, there's such a strong drive to look at what do we do in marketing, what do we do, what do we look at in our client engagement to get more clients, to retain more clients. And so I think the administrative side of dentistry has really changed in that way. You can't just be good at processing insurance anymore. You have to be good at client retention. So that's one of the things I work on a lot is what are those verbal skills? How do we do that? How do we manage the service protocol and process? So on the administrative side, that's a big focus.
Excellent. You know, could you provide maybe some quick tips? Because I know a lot of our listeners are probably thinking like, okay, that all sounds really good, but maybe we can get some actionable items. Maybe you could give us some educational tips.
Absolutely. I'll give you a couple. I'm going to give you a phone tip for the new patient call. I'm also going to give you a couple engagement tips for the treatment discussions, financial discussion. So for the new patient call, we've got to have great phone voice, right? And so I teach them really think about that. And sometimes when we answer the phone, we take that tagline, that greeting, we make it one long sentence. You know, it's like, thank you for calling Dr. Fantastic's office. This is Lorraine. May I help you, please? And so it really sends the wrong impression, and we get focused on answering the phone. What I teach is we don't answer the phone anymore here. We talk to people. We communicate with people. We build value. We happen to do it through a piece of plastic. So we really want to answer the phone. The tagline I give is, thank you for calling Dr. Fantastic's office. This is Lorraine. May I help you, please? So we have to have pacing and inflection. When a new patient calls, one of the big questions that we get these days is, do you accept Aetna or whatever the plan is? And oftentimes people don't even identify themselves. They'll just say, do you accept Blue Cross Blue Shield? And one of the things I teach is we don't do business till we exchange names. We're in the relationship business, right?
Sure.
So if you call and say, and I answer the phone, thank you for calling Dr. Fantastic's office. This is Lorraine. May I help you, please? And you were to say, do you accept Aetna? I would say, my name's Lorraine. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Because I want you to tell me your name before I do business with you. Sure. And then at that point, what would you say? You were the patient.
Well, you'd have to be kind of rude to not tell you your name. I'd say, I'm Justin.
Right. And so then I would say, well, Justin, judging by your question, I'm going to guess you've never been here before, have you? And you would say,
no, I haven't.
Well, first, welcome to our practice. Thank you for calling. Thank you for choosing us. Justin, we're great at insurance here. We help everyone with insurance. Do you mind if I learn a little bit more about what you're looking for or what you need? And if you decide that you like the idea of coming to our practice, I'll be happy to talk to you about how we process the claims. And so now, at that point, stop the role playing. What would you be thinking about this practice now if you were the client?
Well, you know, I think there's two different sets. I think with the kind of patient that you want, which is, you know, someone who is actually looking for comprehensive care, looking for a dentist they can trust, I think they're willing to engage in that discussion. For someone who's strictly looking for someone, the first dentist to pick up the phone who takes the insurance, they might not care too much, but then you might draw them in still. So I don't know. I mean, you tell me, how does that usually go if you've got one of those penny pinchers, those shoppers, versus the kind of patient that most of our listeners actually want?
So it's interesting that we call them penny pinchers and shoppers, and I think we have consumers. And I think that's one thing we have to understand about. They're not our patients, they're consumers. And so we have these assumptions that when people start off with that question, that's all they care about. And sometimes when they start that way, that might be true. But if you disarm them a little bit, often they'll comply. If you get someone that says, look, I just want to know if you participate with my insurance, my question would be, is there a reason why? Because if I don't participate, I'm dead, right? If that's all you're looking for, you're going to hang up anyway. So if we don't participate, I'd say why? And it was interesting because I had a gentleman once, I figured this out because I was just trying to figure out what to do. And I had a gentleman once that said, because if I go to someone that doesn't participate, I'll have no benefits at all. And then I was able to say, well, I have good news for you. That's not always true. So you can often pick a provider of your choice, someone that you really like and helps you the way you want. Are you open to that discussion? The worst thing that they're going to do is hang up on me. And when you look at the fact that it costs money to make that phone ring, I'm willing to take that risk. It's interesting. One of my coaches and mentors said to me once, you're only risking a yes. If they're going to hang up, you're only risking a yes. You already have a no. And so I think that's the approach we need to take. And so then I think we ask really good care questions. And then at the end of the call, if we don't participate, I have languaging for that and how we talk to them. I want them to get a chance to fall in love with me for just a few minutes before I tell them what's wrong with me, right? The analogy I give is if you were going on a date the first time and you really wanted someone to like you, you wouldn't sit down at the date and say, well, you know, before we start, I just want to let you know that I snore, I have cellulite. I have mood fluctuations once a month that are pretty intolerable, but I'd really like to see you again, right? So I think, we don't want to come out of the gate with where we're not at the highest expectation. Does that make sense?
Sure, sure. And, if someone calls and asks, do you take the insurance? I mean, basically, if you say no, click. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to avoid just because your relationship right now is predicated on whether or not you take their insurance. So if the answer is no, the relationship's over. If you delve in deeper and find out what they really want, then maybe you can get a dialogue going. Is that kind of the idea there?
Yeah, and there's a way I teach a turnaround at the end. So, and I think we make assumptions because people ask that when they call, that's all they care about, and that's not true. So it's interesting. I had a pediatrician I was picking out for my children years ago, and I did these great referrals all over in the community. And my question when I called them was, do you take Blue Cross Blue Shield? But I didn't care. I wasn't looking for a participating provider. I just, as shoppers, as consumers, when we don't know what to ask, we often ask price-driven questions first, right? If you don't know what to ask, it's how much is it? And that's our patient's way of saying, how much is it? So I think there are assumptions we have. So there are all kinds of great things you can do in that call to maximize the marketing. Marketing costs money.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, because if you're not if you're getting all kinds of calls, say you do a direct mail campaign, and
right.
Everyone's calling asking about insurance, and you just keep saying no, we don't take them, no, we don't take them. It's like, hold on a minute, you spent $5,000 on those mailers. That was a waste. All it did was waste your time and take up your front desk's time, and now the patients aren't being taken care of the way they would have. So because you can't hire an additional dental assistant because you're not making any additional money. So now the patients are bearing the cost of that ultimately. So I really like that. That's really important, is making sure that you answer the phone. When you do answer the phone, that you're being productive and you're building those bridges with people. So that's really interesting. I mean, do you have any other tips as far as, like, not to do with the phone, but maybe some other tips that our listeners would appreciate?
Yes, and it's interesting. So one of them that I teach is, we have these financial discussions or treatment discussions, and people often ask questions or respond to us, and we tend to want to give information back, right? And so what I teach is think from the why. So as an example, I was in a financial arrangement discussion with a patient once, and it'd been a great experience all the way through. The gentleman sat down, and we started to talk about things, and he said, Lorraine, I only want to do what the insurance covers at 100, what the insurance covers 100%. Mm-hmm. I only want to do what the insurance covers. So he had an extensive treatment plan. That wasn't going to work. And so again, I wasn't sure what to do, because if I would have given him information about what the insurance covers, that would have told you where this was going to go, right?
Sure.
So I looked at him and I said, is there a reason why? And one of the things that was really interesting in that moment, he said, yeah, it's because my boss is trying to screw me. And I said, what? Like, really, what? Why? And I said, my answer was, okay, how does that relate to the insurance? And he said, look, my employer has cut back every single way and they're getting every dime out of us. And so I know I have $1,000 a year. I only want to do $1,000 a year because I want to get every penny I can out of my boss, which is interesting. So his paradigm of how the insurance worked was very, very different. And so I said,
well, I was just going to say, you would have never known that had you not asked.
Just ask why, right? And so it's, we don't always say why, but whenever someone says something, part of what I'm trying to figure out is why did they say that? Why did they ask that question? Before you give information, think from the why. So why would you say, I only want to do what the insurance covers 100%. I only want to go to my max. And, you know, we have assumptions behind that. Our assumption is it means people don't want to spend any money. That's not necessarily true. We don't know what the perceptions are. So in that case, I was able to say to him, you know, Mr. Jones, you know, I can understand if I understood the insurance the way you did, I might feel that way too, but there's more involved here. Can we talk about that? And so then the first thing I said is, can I share with you, when he opened up, can I share with you about how insurance works? And so then I just simply said, you know, your insurance is a premium your employer pays. So how you manage your dental care has no impact at all on your employer. So that's the first thing to remember. And they pay percentages of things. And what the insurance company is trying to do is minimize what they spend every year, and they don't really care if your condition gets worse. So if we do what you're asking, we're going to leave untreated conditions that are going to get more expensive and more complicated. Your insurance won't really cover it anyway because they're not going to cover it anymore later, and you won't hurt your boss. Does that change how you want to proceed? And guess what his answer was?
Absolutely. That sucker. I was out to get him, but I'm going to have to do it in a different way.
Right. And so I think it's a simple example. You know, there's so many things that people say to us, and we're so quick to want to educate and respond. And I think, you know, when we're having these dialogues with people, I like to say, think from the why. Sometimes ask them why, or sometimes I'll say, well, is there a specific reason, or is there something specific about timing that affects your decision? So we need to be asking more questions. So that's one tip. I'll give you another tip. I have a formula. I call it SSS, P, or Q. And it stands for short, simple statements, pause, or question. All right, and then I'm going to ask you a question before I define what that means a little bit. So are you married, or have you ever been in a relationship?
Have I ever been in a relationship? Yes.
Okay. So you ever have those days you come home and you're tired and you don't feel like listening to anybody, and your significant other is talking and talking and talking about something you don't really care about, but you're smart enough not to ignore them, right? So how many?
Yeah. Totally.
All the time. We're always smart. So how many sentences do you really listen to before you put the fake smiley fakes on, like you're really listening?
After everything after fire, I stopped listening. It's
right.
I'm not sure. The first sentence, the second, I'm not sure.
That's what I hear. Around the country, that's what I hear, right? Is most of the time when we're tired, listening is hard. It's an intensive exercise. And so, you know, when we're tired and we don't want to hear something, or we're hearing something controversial, we have a brain limit in how many sentences we're willing to listen to. But we're all trained to be polite, aren't we? You know, I mean, haven't you ever listened to somebody and been faking it? Not now.
Me personally, well, I think all our listeners might be able to relate to that. Maybe, yeah, absolutely.
Right, we all do it. So the formula, it's when we communicate with people, we want to acknowledge that most people only listen well to 3 to 5 sentences in a row. If they're tired, if they're hearing things they're uncomfortable with. So the formula is short, simple statements, pause, or question. If you're engaging in financial discussions or intensive treatment discussions, 3 to 5 sentences, pause, or question.
So you don't just ramble about amalgam versus composite and the.
Right. So, and it's interesting, you know, I have a check mark that goes off in my head, you know, when I was working with a patient, or even sometimes in negotiations, that if I hear myself going into too many sentences, sometimes I'll just find a place just to end, just to stop. And when I stop, guess what happens?
Then I jump in and I'm like, that's great. Excellent.
Right? So, so your tips of the day I'd give you is really, think about how we answer that phone. And the two formulas are, think from the why, short, simple statements, pause or question. Make people engage with you. So if you're in treatment presentation, I want that patient talking at least 50% of the time. Does that help?
That makes sense. And that's very, very useful. Let me tell you, because people like to talk. People like to hear themselves talk. Not everyone. Some people more than others. I probably need to stop talking right now. But the point is, patients love to talk about themselves. You're their service provider. You're someone that not just service provider. That sounds so generic. It's a healthcare trusted professional.
Right.
And how do you build trust if you don't know anything about me? How do I know? How do I trust you? You don't know who I am. You don't understand who I am. You might understand my mouth, but the way patients think is, do you understand me? Do you know what I want and why? Like you said, ask why. Why this? Why that? If a dentist is not listening to his patients, he can have the clinical, or she can have the clinical side down pat and, understand the teeth and the gums and all that really well. But no one really can gauge that. Nobody really knows, oh, this dentist knows my teeth really well. And I think a lot of patients say, basically, oh, all dentists know dentistry. That's a commodity. But what I really value is that relationship, being understood and being heard and feeling appreciated. So that, I think you're really onto something here. Could you tell us a little bit about the programs that you teach?
Absolutely. So I speak professionally, obviously, on the platform. So any meeting planner, or I have specialists that bring me in as a gift to their referring doctors. And we work with various issues such as how to give effective feedback to your team. We work with how to learn how to do behavioral interviews, how to handle difficult situations, and as well as new patient call, treatment presentation. I teach, one of the things I teach doctors is how to have performance-related conversations with their team without creating a lot of negative backlash. So those are some of my speaking protocols. In the office, I have some people I perform what I call quick skills training, right? So it's not really intensive consulting, but you go in one time, you really work on a specific skill. I also have clients that, I work with for an intensive program for 6 months or a year, and we really work at redefining and fleshing out their systems, their leadership structures. How do we organize the team? How do we all get things done together? I have a lot of clients on recall. So you're familiar with what a dental recall is, a dental checkup, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about like Solution Reach and Yappy and things like that.
No, as a patient, right? So patients, so I do recalls too, right? So our dentist does a recall. And this is one thing I'd like to drive home, as I know we're coming to wrap up. It's interesting that, and I'm speaking to the dentists out there in the world and the team. It's interesting that we work so hard to get our patients in good health, to convince them to go into good health, right? And then we ask them to do this really crazy thing. We ask them to come in every 3 to 6 months, take time and spend money, give us money, to look around when there's no problem, to find problems or make sure there aren't any. And we call that a dental checkup, a prophy exam, right?
Right.
Isn't that interesting? And we know we do that. The reason we encourage that is because it's better for our patient. We know that if we can take care of things before they become significant or prevent them from happening, our patient spends less and goes through less. So that's how we run our practice. We need to run our business that way. So like I've had people, we go in and we really revamp systems, revamp the office, do a lot of work. They call me for recall. So they'll call me sometimes once a year, once every 2 years, when there's nothing obviously wrong, just like we do with a recall patient. And it's great. Then you keep momentum, you keep things moving, and you come in for a short burst, you redefine systems, you get things in order. You know, it's just like the patient. We're just like our patients, right? We start to let some things go in our business a little bit, but we don't need to wait till it hurts to get help.
Sure.
And so that's one of the things that I work on as well.
You know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
That's right. That's right. You know, it's interesting because when you're working in a preventative capacity, and you're still implementing systems, but it's interesting for the time and energy and the work, the return is exponential. You know, you probably work on your business, don't you?
Yeah, once in a while.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting when you work on your business and you work on improvements when there aren't a lot of tremendous problems, the return on your investment is exponential. I mean, it's much more significant than when you're in crisis. So like, I'll say that I have 2 coaches I'm working with right now. And so for my business, and it's because I understand that prevention. So that's, I think, one point I just really want to drive home to your viewers out there is whether they work with me or someone else, periodically, it's absolutely a great business structure to have somebody come in and put eyes on what you're doing. Absolutely. And have you see what you can do to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, and this ties into what I tell dentists. I just got off the phone with a dentist, and I was saying, look, content marketing is something I'm really huge on because I do SEO for dentists, and you know, content marketing is really huge. And a lot of dentists, they're told by other SEO companies who will remain nameless, oh, just start blogging. But that's kind of like the what your analogy of, oh, I'm listening, but I'm not really listening. It's like I'm blogging, but I'm not really speaking. I'm not really educating or entertaining my patients or my ideal prospective patients. And so what I'm always talking about is let's create content that people actually crave, where if they give you your email, their real email, they actually open that email and they crave the next one because they know that content is so valuable to them. It's entertaining, it's educational. And what you're doing is, and a lot of times that's spoke about as top of funnel and kind of reaching out for people through SEO. But what you're doing is you're parlaying that whole process of relationship building, being personable and showing who you are and showing that you care through content. And whether that content is online, in a blog, video, photography, or copywriting, or even audio, the point, or in person as well. So absolutely, that whole concept of let's not be a commodity, let's not be another doc in the box. That's huge.
It's interesting that we are hit with so much information. So I agree with you. When you want to send things out that are patient-centric. You want them to want to look at what you have. You know, there's a phrase I often use in communication that I think ties exactly to what you're talking about. And that is, it's not what you tell people that counts. It's what they decide to hear and consider relevant in their decision-making that matters. And hearing is a decision. And taking the information that you hear and deciding to use it and implement it is a decision. So it's a paradigm in the way you communicate. So when you talk about just throwing information out there and blogging, that's about what you want to tell people. That's what that's about. And so I love what you're saying, because what you're saying to the client is, let's think about what your client wants to hear. Let's think about what resonates with them and make this about something you're giving them instead of something you're doing to them.
Right.
So
instead of being like, instead of me, this is us, this is what we do, this is why we're so great. You know, what if your blog was something that patients actually read?
Yes, that they want to read it. Again, there's so much stimulus. In fact, there are businesses that I get email marketing from, and there are some I shut down right away, and there are some that I look forward to what they're going to have, and it doesn't always resonate, but it feels very focused to what that consumer would want or need or care about. It doesn't feel so self-serving, The me feels really self-serving. I want you to pay attention to me. It feels more like my children, right? attention to me. So, yeah.
I hope you're really young. I hope.
Yeah. Well, they're teenagers, so that's young, right?
It's young to me. I'm getting up there. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so yeah, this is really good stuff because this is all about the content funnel. This is all about building those relationships, letting them know that it's about you, it's about what you want, and it's just like what I try to do on this show. Dentists, look, I want your feedback. Let me know. Do you have any questions for Lorraine? Do you have any questions for me? Wherever you see this on the Dental Town blog. The Dental Marketing Guy blog, YouTube, wherever you find this, let me know in the comments below. If this isn't hitting on point, let me know. Is there a guest that you want to see? Are there questions that you have for Lorraine? Yeah, Lorraine, where can they find you?
They can find me. My website is www.guth.dentalconsulting.com. My email is Lorraine@guthdentalconsulting. My business line is 636-273-9500, and my cell is 314-304-3176. Also invite them, if they go to my website, they can sign up for what I call a virtual cup of coffee. I won't sell anything. I don't sell on the phone, so anybody can call. We'll set up time. We'll talk about whatever you have interest in or you're concerned about, and help you through issues. I'll share with you. I've had people I've never worked with before call my cell phone at 9 o'clock at night because they found something very challenging in their office and they need help and they don't have anybody to call. And so that, I can help you through certain issues and move forward. So it's relatively easy to contact me. I do everything I can to return your call or respond to you promptly. So look forward to it.
Well, I got to say before we close, I had Howard Farran on the show, and he's such a great guy. In his book, Uncomplicating Business, he had a really, really interesting take on being accessible. And his philosophy, and this is kind of funny because I don't know if this is always true with all executives, but it's definitely true of Howard, is he believes that by being accessible, that's a true sign of success. It shows that you have margin. And I really like that. So obviously you're doing that. So thank you very much for coming on the show. And I hope that, the dentist found it useful. And of course, if they have any questions for you, I will plug them into you for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And thank you for watching the Dental Marketing Guy Show.